Now that Black Ops 6 Zombies has been out for a few weeks, I thought it'd be a great time to go through and list every single thing I don't like about the mode. Now keep in mind, this video is going to be purely meant for constructive criticism and feedback. This is not meant to just complain mindlessly about the game. That's just not the type of thing I like to do. This is all just meant to be feedback, so perhaps some of these things can be changed in the future, or maybe just changed for future maps or even future games. Obviously, my opinions are just my own. Definitely feel free to let me know in the comments if you disagree with any of my thoughts here, or let me know some other things you don't like about BO6 Zombies that I don't mention in this video. We are going to be splitting this video up into two separate sections. The first section is going to be things that they can still change about the mode as a whole, or the existing maps of Liberty Falls and Terminus, whereas the second section is going to be things that they likely can't change about the current game, but they can change for either future maps or even just future games in general. It's just going to be literally every single thing that I have a problem with in Black Ops 6 Zombies at this current moment. Of course, things get patched all the time. Some of these things can be changed literally within a couple days. We don't really know, but this is just my current thoughts. Let's get into it. First things first, I want to talk about a couple of optimization problems with the game currently, and this is mainly in relation to the lag and the packet bursts. It has been so bad, the worst it's ever been for any Zombies experience, at least for me personally. Now this is obviously going to be very subjective to your own experience. I've talked to many people who have had not a single issue with lag or packet burst in the Zombies mode just yet, but I also have talked to many others that have had a lot of issues. It really just depends. I'm not sure why it's bad for some and not bad for others, but it is not related to Wi-Fi whatsoever because I have amazing Wi-Fi. It works perfectly fine on every other game, but for some reason Black Ops 6, especially the Zombies mode, it's been happening in multiplayer as well, and even in the campaign, there's just a lot of moments of just bad performance. It's not always consistent. Some moments are perfectly fine, but randomly you'll have these packet bursts that just kind of ruin the feel of the game, and it really is getting frustrating. Even into Season 1, there are still problems with it. I will say the pausing situation is also really frustrating. Obviously, they have this new system here where you can just save and quit when you're playing solo. So even though you can only pause for a total of 15 minutes throughout an entire game, you can just obviously quit the game, come back in, and then that pause timer will reset. But that can kind of get frustrating sometimes because there's many times where I'm just leaving the room for a little bit and I want to come back and just have my game still be there. And the fact that I got to go all the way through the save and quit menu screen to get back into my game is sometimes kind of frustrating, especially if you're in the later rounds, because if you don't know how the save and quit feature works, it will start you at the beginning of the round that you left on. So if you paused towards the end of a round and you're like really far into the game, you're now gonna have to restart that round from the start, and that could be a couple extra minutes or even up to 10 minutes depending on how far you are in the rounds that you are now just completely wasting, and that can be kind of frustrating. There also isn't any server pause online, which is really frustrating because Black Ops Cold War and Black Ops 4 had that, so to just see that completely disappear for Black Ops 6 is obviously not a good thing. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that these aren't design choices, rather it's just something that they had to do for the game itself, whether it's because of COD HQ or just the new system where everything is online now instead of being able to play like solo offline like you could before. I'm not really sure exactly how they could make it be possible to go back to how it was before, but all I know is they have to do something because I do think this is very frustrating and is something that definitely holds the game back a little bit. Next up, let's talk about some gameplay related things. I want to start off talking about the point system, and the point system is something that I used to say wasn't something they could change with all the other systems in the game, and they would probably have to completely strip away a lot of the systems to make it work, but I've since changed my mind on that. So first of all, I want to go over what is the actual problem with the point system itself. So before Black Ops 4, every single Zombies mode back then had a system where you would earn points based on not only killing the zombie itself, but also based on just hitting the zombie with bullets. So every time a singular bullet touched a zombie, it would give you 10 points, which essentially meant that guns that were weaker would be earning you a lot more points because they would be killing slower. But of course, a stronger weapon would be just safer to use overall because it would protect you more often. It would just have the trade-off of earning you less points. Ever since Black Ops 4, they've kind of changed the system where you now earn a fixed amount of points per zombie kill. It was a little different in Black Ops 4 than it is in Cold War and BO6, but they're relatively similar. it's not based on how many bullets are touching the zombie. Rather, it's just you kill the zombie and you get a fixed amount of points. If you get a headshot, you get a bit more, and a melee kill also gets you a bit more. And there's other smaller things that can give you extra points here or there. But generally speaking, you are getting a fixed amount of points rather than being able to get more points depending on the weapon you are using. And for me, this is a problem because not only does it limit weapon variety, because you have no reason to use weaker weapons in the game unless, of course, you're going for the camo grind and you have to use those weapons. But otherwise, why are you going to choose to use a weaker weapon? I also think it takes away a lot of different variety in the matches themselves. I don't like the fact that in Cold War and BO6, you're pretty much going to have the same amount of points by the same round almost every single game, unless, of course, you buy things in different orders. But generally speaking, you're going to be having a similar amount of points, whereas with the classic system, depending on your strategy, you could be earning a very different amount of points, and I thought that was just way more interesting. It also meant that in the later rounds, your points were almost like exponentially increasing because, of course, you were getting so far into the game where the zombies had a lot more health, therefore your guns took longer to kill, therefore you got more points. But now in BO6, you get to a point in the later rounds where your gun's not really killing as fast. You're only actually earning the points when you finish off the zombie. You're not getting those extra bonus points from just damaging the zombies or just putting bullets into them. So that creates this whole new situation where you're just not getting like any points in the later rounds. And obviously a lot of people have been mentioning before that it's been kind of a frustrating thing about BO6 that you just rarely have enough points for most things in the game. And this isn't entirely a problem when it comes to just survivability, because you can just choose to buy less things and you'll be just fine. The game isn't that difficult. So obviously if you're smarter with your purchases, you will be just fine with points. But that limits customization within a game itself, because now you're kind of discouraged from using multiple guns in the same match. You're not going to fully upgrade a weapon and then try to get a new weapon once you're at like round 30 and beyond. It's just a terrible idea because you're just not going to have enough points for that. Your best option is to stick with the same gun throughout the whole game and maybe like one extra gun. That's pretty much the best option that you can do in BO6 Zombies. But trying to switch between multiple weapons and try out different guns mid-game, that's just not something you can viably do. And I think that's really frustrating because I think that was a fun aspect of classic Zombies where you can like trade out a bunch of different weapons and try them out mid-game. You really don't want to do that anymore because you're just going to end up having barely enough points. And because the guns don't do enough damage in the later rounds, you're not killing them and you're not getting enough points to then help you out to pack a punch again. So there's just a lot of issues with points in this game, and I feel like that's been an issue since Black Ops 4. But here's the thing, Black Ops 4's system was slightly better because at least you were earning those points as you were shooting the zombie rather than only earning them at the very end. Yes, you were getting the same amount of points regardless, but it was just nice the fact that you were at least able to get some of those points before killing the zombie. So if your guns are very weak, you don't actually have to fully kill the zombie to at least get some points to help you out. But as I mentioned before, with all of the systems in this game, like the loadout system, like the rarity system, I just don't see a world where they can possibly give us the classic point system in this game. But what they can do is add something in the game that gives you the ability to use the classic point system on any weapon of your choice. And the idea I had was simply just adding an attachment which would be perfect in the barrel category that would give you the classic point system on that weapon at the trade-off of the weapon doing less damage. So this would probably be only something you can use on like full auto weapons like assault rifles, SMGs, maybe some LMGs and such. And I think it would be perfect. Pistols as well. I think semi-automatic pistols can definitely work with this system. And it would be an attachment that you're only going to use on weapons that you want to specifically designate to be your point guns. You're not going to want to keep these guns as your main weapons into the later rounds because of the trade-off of it doing less damage. So you're going to probably want to keep this for the early rounds just to rack up points, or maybe as a side weapon and then have your main weapon be a more powerful weapon that doesn't have this attachment on it. And I think this would be a great way to get people to actually use certain weapons in this game like the SMGs. There's a lot of SMGs that are completely pointless to use in this game. They're not that powerful. They don't do much damage. The only reason you're going to use them is to get the camos on them so you can go for the Nebula camo grind. But a system like this would actually give you a reason to use those weapons because they would help you get more points. And another big trade-off is that there's another barrel attachment in this game, which of course is the suppressor, which gives you extra salvage. So you're going to have to choose between either having an attachment that gives you extra salvage or an attachment that gives you extra points. And I think that's just such a brilliant trade-off, and it would work so perfectly in the game. And one of the main reasons they actually went with this new point system rather than the classic point system is because the developers didn't want to punish players for playing fast, because of course the classic point system, the best strategy was to like shoot the zombies zombies in the leg a bunch and kind of like use guns that kill a bit slower so you can get as many points out of them as possible. But this system would basically make it so you can do whatever the hell you want. You don't have to bother with the classic point system if you don't want to, but it would be a good idea to do so. You don't have to do it. I think you can obviously play the game without it just fine, but if you want to utilize this attachment to get more points, go for it, and you will definitely have a hard time, surviving in certain situations because your guns are going to be kind of weak, at least the guns that have that classic point system attachment on it, but you will be earning a lot more points in return. I think that would be a perfect system, or at least a perfect system for Black Ops 6 Zombies itself. I would prefer that the future Zombies games just completely go back to the classic point system completely, but I do really like this idea for this game itself. Another thing kind of related to this, I definitely think weapons need a buff across the board. Not all weapons, but a lot of weapons definitely need a bit of a damage buff. Now, I know a lot of people have been saying they should just add double tap to the game, and I honestly don't get the hype for double tap. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's an iconic perk, and it's really cool, but I don't think we need that to have the weapons be more powerful. I think there obviously is already two major things in this game that already buff your weapons, with that being the rarity and the pack-a-punch system. So why not just make it so when you actually get fully upgraded, just make the weapons do at least a little more damage. I don't think the difficulty of the game should revolve around your weapons not being able to kill fast enough. I don't think that is a fun way to make a game more challenging, so definitely make the weapons just a bit more powerful, especially some of the guns that just aren't currently up to par with the better guns in the game. Obviously, guns like the ASG shotgun, they don't need a buff. Those guns are already really powerful, but some of the ARs, some of the SMGs, some of the marksman rifles, they definitely need a bit of a buff. Just make them actually kill better in the later rounds. I'm perfectly fine with weapons being weak as hell in the early rounds, that's fine with me, but when you get them fully upgraded, just make them do a little bit better. Now let's talk a bit about the boss zombies. A lot of people have been mentioning their complaints with the boss zombies in this game. I do think the boss spam is still a little bit bad in some moments, specifically with the manglers. I don't really mind the abominations or the amalgams. I think they're perfectly fine bosses, but manglers do spawn in just a little too much. Just maybe make them spawn in a little less and have them be a bit more powerful, but we don't need them spawning in, multiple at a time every single round. I think that's just a bit much and kind of ruins the flow of the match. And speaking of boss zombies, those vermin rounds need to be shorter in the later rounds. They last way too long, and there's no reason for them to last that long because they're just kind of tedious. They're not that hard to get through. They're just these little vermin bugs you can just shoot very easily to kill. They're not difficult rounds, but they are very annoying when you're standing there for like 5+ minutes in the later rounds, just killing these same bugs over and over again. It's just not fun. This happens on Terminus and Liberty Falls. It's a bit worse on Liberty Falls, I feel like, but it's just not a good system. Definitely we need to shorten those rounds a bit, make them a bit faster so we can not feel as exhausted by those rounds. Next up, I want to talk about some HUD and UI related things. First of all, the HUD settings need to be changed 100%. This has been one of my biggest issues with the Zombies mode since launch, and I really hope they are working on a fix. So specifically, the HUD settings need to be more specific. Obviously, I'm very glad we have HUD customization in general. I think overall that is a good thing, but the settings are not that great right now. First of all, we need the multiplayer and Zombies HUDs to be separated completely. There is no reason why changing the HUD in Zombies should also change your HUD for multiplayer. Many players want a completely separate HUD for their Zombies experience compared to the multiplayer experience, and the fact that as a player like me who plays both multiplayer and Zombies modes very frequently, the fact that I have to change the HUD every single time I go switch into a different mode is so frustrating. Sure, it only takes maybe like 45 seconds to actually change them, but I don't want to have to do that every single time I switch between the modes. And it's so bad that I know many people who want to turn off certain HUD things in Zombies, but they refuse to do it because they don't want to have to turn it back on when they switch over to multiplayer. This is just not a good system whatsoever, and I really hope they can make a change to it. And also, when it comes to some of the Zombies HUD settings itself, there's one that lets you turn off health bars, which obviously is a good thing that you can do, but why isn't there a way to only turn off zombie health bars but leave on the boss health bars? This was something you can actually do in Cold War Zombies, which is a really nice nice thing you can do, but you can't do that here for some reason, which to me is kind of frustrating because I actually would like to have health bars on the bosses. I think those are actually kind of helpful, but having them on the zombies to me is kind of pointless and just kind of looks ugly. So I would like to turn it off for zombies, but turn them on for bosses. I would love to have more specific HUD settings like that. Also, the medals and notifications HUD setting definitely should be separated. Obviously, there is that glitch that lets you put it on the 1 opacity, and it actually does let you only get notifications and you don't get to see the medals, but why not just make that a completely different setting to begin with? I think that would definitely make things a lot easier. I would also love the ability to have the classic score feed on the screen. Obviously, I'm thankful that you can remove the score feed from being in the middle of the screen like it has been for the past few Zombies experiences, but I do miss how it was back in the older Zombies games where the score popped up next to your points itself rather than popping up in the middle of the screen. So I would love the ability to go back to that system rather than either having to deal with the score feed on the screen in the middle or not having it at all. And this next thing might be a minor complaint, but I wish we could see our downs on the scoreboard. I'm assuming they hit it to try to prevent bullying from, other players making fun of other players for going down a lot or something like that. But like, why not just give us the choice to show that or not? Maybe you can have certain players select an option that says don't show my downs or something like that. But me and my friends have no problem with making fun of each other for going down a lot. I think it's kind of funny. I get why some players maybe don't want to share that information. That's fine, but let other players share it if they want to. This next thing might sound like a minor complaint, but honestly, it's something that has been kind of frustrating for me personally, and this is the overall UI experience within the loadout itself when you are selecting the zombie build that you want for each weapon. I don't know why they had to make this so complicated. I feel like it would have made a lot more sense to just simply do like the Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4 system, where you just have a list of every single weapon and you just go down it and specifically put the attachments you want on each of those weapons along with the blueprint. But instead they made it so you have to make a zombie build within your like selected weapons itself, and it shows up in multiplayer as well as a separate blueprint, which is just really weird. And if you want to select existing blueprints, it gets really complicated. And then if you use those weapons in multiplayer and you change the attachments on it, it also changes it for zombies. It's just really frustrating, and you have to like select the weapon into the loadout itself to actually change it rather than just being able to change it without adding it to your loadout. Like, it's just stuff like that that's just like, why? That there's no reason why it needs to be this complicated. It should be a completely separate menu itself. It's just weird to me because I feel like they're always talking about wanting to make the zombies experience more accessible for more players, but then they do stuff like this in the UI that I feel like is not really accessible whatsoever. Like, I know many people who haven't even been able to figure out how to use zombie builds yet. They don't even know it exists because it's just not very intuitive at all. Like, obviously I figured it out. Like, I know how to do it now. It's just, again, not intuitive and just feels kind of finicky and weird to do. I would also love more zombie statistics to be given to us, specifically with a combat record. There is a combat record in multiplayer, but for some reason there isn't one in zombies currently. Obviously you can look into the leaderboards to see specific statistics you want to see, but I think having it all in like a combat record system is much more appealing. They obviously had that back with Black Ops Cold War Zombies, and I would love to see that return. I also think some things like the amount of times you completed a main quest should appear literally directly on the map screen itself when you're loading up a map, the same way it did with Black Ops 4. That was one of my favorite things about Black Ops 4 Zombies, the fact that when you scroll over a map, it tells you how many times you completed each main quest. That's like such a little thing, but it actually convinced me to do the Easter eggs again and again. Those little things really go a long way. And speaking of Easter eggs, I think we need better Easter egg rewards for when you do an Easter egg again and again. Obviously, there is those cool skins you get for the first time completing each Easter egg in the game, but when you do it again, you should be given something for actually doing it again. I feel like that would just be kind of cool. And obviously, in the game itself, you are given some loot items on the floor. You're given a bunch of points, but those loot items usually aren't that great in comparison to the items you probably already have at that point in the match. So I feel like you should be given a lot more. Just as some examples, first of all, Perkaholic, which you are given, that should be a permanent Perkaholic, at least for like a couple downs, perhaps. My idea was just make it 3 downs, so obviously if you're playing solo, it literally would just be a complete permanent Perkaholic because you're only going to have 3 downs available anyways once you run out of self-revives. But then when you're playing co-op, those 3 downs after that, then you would just lose that Perkaholic. I think that would make a lot more sense. We've had permanent Perkaholics as Easter egg rewards before, so I see no reason why we can't do that again. And the loot that drops on the floor should be much better. I've had some times where I've only been given like, a legendary weapon, but then it drops like a tier 1 pap crystal. Well, what's even the point of that? At that point, I probably already have pap 2 or pap 3. So it should be like a guaranteed tier 3 pap crystal, maybe even 2 of them. And then of course, a couple of legendary rarity weapons and maybe a lot of points and a lot of salvage. Like just give me a lot of stuff. And I also think it should give you a couple guaranteed gobblegums, maybe even like the highest rarity gobblegums, at least one of them I think would be a decent reward for doing a full Easter egg. You got to give people a reason to keep doing the Easter eggs rather than just doing them for fun. I think that would be really, really cool. I also think there should be some more map specific rewards as well, and something that I was really thinking was going to happen and unfortunately it didn't happen was why not unlock that extra area where the boss fight actually happens on Terminus after completing the Easter egg. There is no reason why we aren't able to go in that area. I'm sure obviously Treyarch just didn't design that area to work with the traditional round-based formula, but maybe just add a couple spawns in there and just make it actually work for regular round-based, and having that as an additional way to get into the biolab from the water would be really, really cool. It would add a new extra flow to the map itself and would just be nice to have an extra area to train around in. I think that would be awesome. I mean, that was a great reward for completing Zetsubou no Shima's Easter egg, where it actually let you stay in that underground area for the rest of the game after doing that Easter egg. Rewards like that go a long way in my opinion. Another Easter egg related criticism I have for some of the side Easter eggs in the game is that some of them should be things that you can activate more than once in the match. As an example, you have Aetherella on Liberty Falls and then you have Mega Stuffy on Terminus. These are really cool side Easter eggs on both of these maps, but unfortunately you can only do them once within the match itself. So I think it would be really cool if there would be a way to activate it again. And a cool way to do it wouldn't be to just make you have to do the quest again to get it. Rather, why not just make it so once you do the Aetherella quest, there's some place on the map, maybe nearby the Aetherella trap itself, where you can just purchase either with a lot of points or a lot of salvage, the ability to use Aetherella again. Obviously, once that match ends, you would then have to do the side quest again in a new match, but for that match itself, once you do it, you should only have to do it once. And then same thing for Mega Stuffy. Just like any other AI controlled friendly in any other zombies mode, I think it would be really cool if you can call in Mega Stuffy again after Mega Stuffy leaves, instead of just making it so it disappears and then it just doesn't come back at all for the rest of that game. Make these side Easter eggs have more of a purpose to them, and I think this would be a great way to do that. There's also a side Easter egg on Terminus that allows you to upgrade your ammo mods, and it's actually really, really cool. You have to just simply grab the fish from the lake. You have to like blow up the water and get the fish, and then cook the fish with a specific ingredient around the map that applies to each ammo mod, and then you essentially upgrade your ammo mod. It's pretty cool, but it only lasts like 30 seconds, so it kind of is pointless, and you can only do it once in that game. So what's the point? I really don't know. It's kind of a useless side Easter egg, but if they were to change it a bit so it lasts longer, then maybe it wouldn't be useless, and maybe make it so you can do it again and again and again. I obviously understand why it's not going to let you do it forever, because it is very overpowered. Like, it completely just makes your ammo mod unstoppable. But what they could do is nerf it a bit, so make it so it's not nearly as overpowered, but it lasts longer. I think that would be a better trade-off and would actually probably be more fun, and I would definitely be down for that. Now, the last thing I have to say in this section of the video is in relation to the Augments system. I really do like the Augment system. It's a fun way to upgrade specific items in the game, like perks, ammo mods, and field upgrades, but I do think there are some changes that could be made to the system. One way I definitely think it could be changed is how you actually earn the augments themselves. Currently, as it is, you can only research one item at a time, and then you slowly earn XP in game that makes the augments get unlocked for that specific item one by one. But I think what would be really cool is if they let us actually research multiple items at a time, with the trade-off being earning less XP per item. So as an example, as it is currently, when you research one item, like I said, you just get XP for that. But let's say you decide to research 2 items at a time, it should make it so the XP you're earning in the game is now split evenly between both of those augments. I would much prefer that, because I think it would be nicer to just go through matches earning, XP for 2 different augments at a time, or 2 different items at a time, instead of it being all in for one item and then having to leave the game and go back into the game to actually switch it out with a different item. Maybe make it so you can go up to like 4 items at a time or something like that, but again, it will split your XP between those items, so it will be the same amount in total, but you're just able to get little bits of XP at a time for multiple different items. I don't know, I would personally think that'd be more interesting and would at least give us a little more freedom when it comes to unlocking these augments. Now I want to get into the second section of this video where we're going to be talking about things that they can't really change about the current game itself, but rather these are things that they could do for future maps or even future zombies games as a whole, but they are criticisms I have with basically how the game currently is. First things first, there are not enough map unique things on Liberty Falls and Terminus. And the reason I'm putting this in this section is because they're not going to go in and throw new things on these maps to make them more map specific. That doesn't really happen. So this is mainly in reference to what they can do for the DLC. I'm really hoping the DLC is actually going to have more map specific features. And when I'm talking about map specific things, I'm talking about bosses, items, equipment, or just mechanics, things on the map that set itself apart from the other map. Now, obviously, there are not, 0 unique things. That would be ridiculous to say. There's the obvious things like the wonder weapons. No shit, those are going to be unique. The story, the map itself, the layout, all that. And other things like the boat system, obviously, that's unique to Terminus and is not on Liberty Falls, and the side Easter eggs, all those things. Obviously, there are unique things. But overall, compared to other games like Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Infinite Warfare, I do feel like we don't have enough map unique things. And I think bosses are one of the main things there, because you look at a map like Liberty Falls, there's not a single unique boss on that map. Instead, they use the vermin from Terminus, the manglers that we've seen millions of times before and are also on Terminus, and then the abomination, which is something we've also seen a bunch of times before as well. So I just personally don't feel like these maps have enough to them that really set them apart. But I think the insane amount of side Easter eggs is definitely one thing that does keep these maps separate. And obviously there is a lot of personality to these maps when it comes to like the music and the atmosphere. Even if I don't love the atmosphere of Liberty Falls, it is obviously very different than Terminus. So that is a good thing. But I want to see more, so much more. I want to see bosses that we've never seen before on specific maps. I want to see pieces of equipment that only appear on certain maps and aren't on other ones. I want to see even score streaks that only appear on certain maps, or maybe like upgrades for score streaks or upgrades for equipment that only appear on certain maps. I want to see map features and mechanics that only appear on certain maps. And in general, not even necessarily talking about unique things, but I do think the maps need more interactive features built into the map. And this is gonna sound kind of like a weird criticism, because I do love the fact that there is bowling on Liberty Falls. Don't get me wrong, I love that side Easter egg. But I personally think it would be a lot cooler and a lot more immersive and interactive if the bowling was just a feature built into the map itself. So you can just go up to the bowling thing whenever you want and just start bowling. Like, why not have that be built into the game itself? Obviously, don't make it so you can constantly get free loot from it, because it would be a bit overpowered. But just let players just have fun and bowl randomly whenever they want on the map. They also have arcade machines in Liberty Falls. Why not let us play arcade games on them? Small stuff like that goes a long way. Maps like Spaceland that have all these arcade games you can play and these mini games, those are really, really fun and cool. And like I said, I love the fact that bowling is there, but I think the fact that it like has to teleport you to it and it's only something you can do every like 6 rounds or something like that, it definitely isn't as cool or as interactive as it would be if it was just built into the game by default. I love the boat racing side Easter egg on Terminus as well, but again, I think you just need more things that are just directly interactable, directly part of the match itself. Other good examples are the Plinko board on Carrier. Like, that's just a small feature that goes a long way. The plant system on Zetsubou no Shima is another great example. These are just really fun things to mess around with as a player, and I think Black Ops 6 just needs more of that. Similarly, the SAM trials system I think is a really cool, and I do like how it works on Liberty Falls and Terminus, but I do think the DLC maps should make the trial system different. I really didn't like the fact that Black Ops Cold War had the exact same challenge trial system on every single map. It was literally the exact same. But I loved how in Black Ops 4 and Infinite Warfare, you had different challenge systems per map. Not even every map had a challenge system, but some of them did. And when they did, they were completely different systems with completely different themes. I think it goes a long way with map personality to do something like that. And I'm really worried they're not going to do that and it's just going to be the exact same S.AM trial system on every single map. But I feel like with this next map, with the fact that it takes place in a citadel, it should be something completely different. I don't think the S.AM Trials machine is going to fit on that map as well as it does on Terminus and Liberty Falls. But imagine it's like some medieval themed like challenge pillar, kind of like what we've seen before in other maps, and it just finding a way to theme it differently and also have the mechanics work a bit differently is just a bit more exciting because you get to learn new mechanics each map. One of my main issues with Modern Zombies is the fact that a lot of the mechanics are so similar map to map, and I think it makes it less exciting when a new DLC map comes out because there's overall just less mechanics to learn. But when you go back to Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, Infinite Warfare, there's all sorts of new mechanics to learn on every single map, and I think that's just so much more exciting. A new map should feel like it's a brand new game releasing. Don't make it just feel like an extension of the existing game. I want it to feel like a new experience all around. And again, as I said before, there are a lot of great side Easter eggs in Black Ops 6 Zombies, definitely better than what we had in Black Ops Cold War, but I still think there could be some changes made to them. One of these changes would be better rewards and more unique rewards. Unfortunately, a lot of the side Easter eggs on Terminus and Liberty Falls just to give you extra points, salvage, and loot, and that's it. Those are not exciting rewards. Some of them are really cool, obviously Etherella, Mega Stuffy, the Cursed Talisman, those are awesome. I love getting unique rewards like that. But when you just get some loot, especially sometimes when it turns out to be really bad loot or just a free perk, which sometimes is nice to see, but they're not like that interesting. The rewards aren't that exciting. I want to see some crazy unique rewards. And the reason they don't really do that anymore, they used to do that a lot back in Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4 with a lot of unique items. Think of like the Savage Impaler from Dead of the Night or the Stake melee weapon from Dead of the Night. Stuff like that was so unique. The reason they probably don't do that is because they know a lot of players aren't going to do the side Easter eggs anyways, a lot of casual players. So why are they going to create a whole new item in the game that's only going to be used by the really hardcore fans? They want everyone to have a shot at using these items, and I get that to a degree, but there's a few things they can do to work around that. First of all, why not include some of the side Easter eggs in the directed mode? They talked about the directed mode being this big thing to allow them to make the Easter eggs as hard and as complicated as possible, even though they're not really going that far with it. But in general, they don't have to worry too much about the Easter eggs being accessible because there's going to be a directed mode that makes them accessible directly. But why not also put some side Easter eggs in there too? I mean, they completely stripped away the side Easter eggs from that directed mode. If they include a separate directed mode specifically meant for side Easter eggs, you can now allow casual players to directly earn the rewards from these side Easter eggs, or at least learn them and then maybe do them in separate games themselves. I think that would definitely work. And also, they don't need to make the rewards be completely new items either. What they could do is just make it so you can upgrade existing items in the game itself. They've done this before. We've seen this. We've seen upgraded Little Arnies, upgraded Monkey Bombs, even upgraded shields in like Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4. There's so many items in Black Ops 6 that I think could use an upgrade. I mean, look at all the equipment and score streaks in Black Ops 6 Zombies. Why not let us do quests to upgrade these? They have augments to upgrade, you know, the perks, ammo mods, and field upgrades, but why not let us upgrade the Casimir or the Monkey Bombs or the Chopper Gunner or the Mangler Injection? Like, let us upgrade these through quests. And obviously it would only upgrade it in that match itself, and if you go into a new game later on, you would have to do the quest again. It would just give players more things to do with actual good, interesting rewards that are unique and not just salvage and points and all that stuff. I also think upgraded power-ups would be really cool. How awesome would that be if there was a quest on a map to upgrade double points and turn it into triple points? So every time you get a double points the rest of that game, it's a triple points. Like, small stuff like that, man, would be so cool and would be actually worth doing rather than it just being, again, like just simple rewards. I also think we should have more difficult and complex side Easter eggs. Unfortunately, a lot of the side Easter eggs in this game are very easy and simple. They are very straightforward. You just go around the map and hold X on like 5 items for some of them, or you just shoot a couple things on the map. They're so easy to do, and I kind of miss having some really complicated side Easter eggs. I think side Easter eggs are the best place to do complicated quests because obviously the main Easter eggs are the ones where, you know, that's all story focused. They really want players to do them. They really want as many people as possible to do them, but side Easter eggs are not as big of a deal for them because it's like, it's okay if some players don't do them. So why not bring the complicated puzzle solving stuff that we used to have in like Black Ops 4 and Infinite Warfare and World War II Zombies? Why not bring that stuff over to some of these side Easter eggs? Unfortunately, Black Ops 6 Zombies currently only has one puzzle in the entire game, and that is the one puzzle that you have to do. I guess it's kind of like a math equation, but I would put that under the realm of puzzles within the Terminus quest to getting the Beam Smasher, which you actually don't even have to do because you can skip it for 5,000 points if you bribe Peck with it, or you could just get the Beam Smasher out of the mystery box. So there are so many ways to skip over doing that one puzzle that's in the entire game. Why not give us some more puzzles? I think the future maps definitely deserve more. I'm a big fan of puzzles and zombies. I know a lot of people don't like them, but I personally love them. And like I said, I don't need them in the main quest, so why not have some side Easter eggs that include them? I think that would be really cool. And even just the main Easter eggs in general, I definitely think they need to make them a bit harder and more complex. I obviously understand why, you know, we have launch maps here. They don't want to make them too difficult and too complex, but with the directed mode, I don't really see why not. Like, why can't we make them a bit harder and more complex? Because you're going to have this directed mode anyways that's going to carry players through it if they aren't as good or they don't want to deal with a harder quest. Because I know a lot of players don't like the quests being very complicated, but I think we deserve at least 1 or 2 maps throughout the DLC season that is a lot more complicated, and I think that would be really cool, at least above the level of like Garad Krovi or something. Because I know obviously Terminus was meant to be the more hardcore friendly map. I don't think the Easter egg really reached that height though. The boss fight is awesome and it definitely was really difficult the first time I did it, but I feel like once you learn certain like strategies, it's actually really not that hard. It's still definitely a great boss fight, don't get me wrong. I would put it up there as one of the best boss fights ever, but it's not like impossible to do or like very difficult or very challenging. And then the Easter egg before that, again, it's really not like that complicated. It's pretty straightforward for the most part, but I would like to have some more complicated main Easter eggs as well going forward. So all in all, that is everything I don't like about Black Ops 6 Zombies in its current state. I really do hope some of these things change going forward, whether it's with, you know, patch updates or with the new maps. But overall, I am really enjoying Black Ops 6 Zombies. I really do think this is a solid Zombies title. Definitely the best Zombies mode since Black Ops 4, and I'm very excited for the future of this mode. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Peace out, everyone.